If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel on YouTube at Wild and Weird WV.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast. Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. Thanks for tuning in yet again, another week. And man, I know it kind of gets old hearing me say this, but we have really got a special episode tonight. This is the UFO Day special.
Yeah, it is absolutely. It's World UFO Day. I mean, it's celebrated actually 2 times a year, which is wonderful. And we used to just put it together and call it the Roswell Week. Remember that?
Yeah, Roswell Days.
But now it's, instead of Roswell Days, we're just going to do World UFO Days and just take it with everybody else. And we couldn't have a better. I don't think we'd have a better guest.
And this is such a primer for what we got coming up here in a couple short months. It's going to be Flatwoods Convention is going to be right on top of us very, very soon. And this is a primer. I'm telling you, this episode, this convention, there could not be a better time for it than right now.
Synchronicity. This has all been no, I'm kidding. But maybe, I don't know. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I don't know what's going on out there.
How's y'all's week's been?
How about you, Brandon? Is Brandon? Oh yeah, he's alive.
I've been getting stuff ready for the book and fixing things. Apparently, the cover didn't print very well, so I had to put a higher resolution picture up to fix that with Amazon.
Fun.
Well, that's good. Hopefully, as soon as that fixed, Amazon can get that straightened up and get the covers ready to go. So that way, all the pre-orders can start flying out of their warehouse.
That's awesome. Well, good job, man. And yeah, definitely want to get that up there for everybody. I've been pretty much working on stuff for Kecksburg at this point. Back to working for stuff for shows, on shows, and getting the presentation ready to go. Things like that, and trying to dumb down the presentation. That's hard for me. I can't. It's hard to edit these things down. And on top of that, we got the investigation the other night. Managed to put that together into a piece. It's just been busy, but we got it.
I have been working in the basement nonstop.
Okay.
That's coming along, and I've been working in this room, getting it ready
that's good.
for production, getting some old stuff out and emptied off my mold shelf, so that way we can get products moving again.
That's good. So
that'll
make people happy. So
that's been good. So let's just bust straight through it. No news tonight.
No news tonight.
Dive right in.
I don't think we want to do any news tonight. Let's just do a really quick intro into what this show is actually going to be about. And like we said, it is basically a World UFO Day special. And for those who don't know what planet you may be on, I have no idea if you don't, but back in July 1947, July 8th, 1947, Roswell Army Airfield revealed that they had found a flying disc. But within, 12 hours, that story was rolled back and changed to, nope, it was just a weather balloon. And ensued basically a, multi-decade campaign of just official denial, disinformation, making fun of witnesses, the whole thing. Enter the scene a man called Stanton Friedman, who came in there, dug the story up, put it back out into the public, and it exploded, to everyone's amazement. And all of a sudden, now Roswell's on the list, But let's fast forward, because even back then, they came out and said, nah, it's all just hoax. It wasn't a weather balloon. It was just a top secret balloon, but it was still a balloon with Oh, and the aliens? No, those are crash test dummies. It's all good. But fast forward to just a few weeks ago.
We just needed real coffins to bury them in. That's
right.
all.
We just needed real coffins to bury those alien mannequins in. That's all. But the funny thing is, just a few weeks ago, those people who made fun of these people were probably, well, actually they did. I watched them on the news, laughing very, very, very cautiously and nervously, as our whistleblower David Grush came forward and seemingly confirmed, that there were indeed programs.
He can't talk about Roswell.
He can't talk about Roswell.
He can't talk about Roswell.
Let's be real. He cannot talk about Roswell. That was one of the things that he said. I am not clear to talk about Roswell. But I'll tell you that, we have crashed recoveries that go back possibly, almost a century. So some of these crash recoveries were taken to various places across the country, in the world, right? And right here, of course, there was Nellis Air Force Base. And then there was this one little place close to home. You know that place, Joe?
Oh, I know that place very well.
You know that place very well, right?
In prior service Air Force, and the fact that we live really in close proximity to said Air Force Base, its connections to Project Blue Book, it's got connections to the Flatwoods incident, it's got connections to Roswell, it's got connections to every major UFO story that has come out in the United States, and would not surprise me if it was abroad.
Yeah.
That is Wright Patterson, which was airfield, now Air Force Base.
Yep.
And we have the man when it comes to Wright Patterson Airfield and Air Force Base with us on the show, and that is none other than the world-renowned, because I said that,
world-renowned
in the Facebook post with the convention, world-renowned speakers,
world-renowned speakers
and authors coming to West Virginia to present, not only there, but on the show today, Raymond Szymanski. We have the man in the house with us right here. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a background on Ray, and then we're going to let him take it from there. So
because we could not read this man's epilogue. No, it's just too long. It's
a tome.
Yeah, so it really is.
He's an award-winning author and researcher and lecturer. He's acknowledged expert on Wright Pat Air Force Base and the alien connections. One of the best books, in my opinion, that has come out in modern ufology stuff is Swamp Gas My Ass. And it was the final bit in a trilogy that he had composed there. He's also appeared on Expedition X. He's made guest appearance on Coast to Coast AM with George Knapp. He's been on Open Minds with Alejandro Roaz. He's been on Midnight in the Desert, you name it, every show under the sun, and now he is on Wild and Weird Radio. He's also holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, electrical and electronics engineering from the University of Detroit, 1975 and 83. He completed graduate studies in computer engineering at Wright State University and Joint Program Office Evaluation and Validation Team, sponsored by the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. Again, we said it was a tome, and we're going to let the man take it from here. How you doing, Ray? Nice to have you on the show.
I'm doing terrific. Let me connect to that last point about working for the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense. I worked a program called the Ada. Ada is a woman's name. She was the Countess Ada, and she was the world's first computer programmer. And so when the Department of Defense named their programming language, which they developed for real-time embedded weapon systems, they named it after Ada. So the years go by. I work for the Ada Joint Program Office, the Undersecretary, for 10 years. And I write annual reports. And one day I'm just nostalgically going through Googling, and I Google my name and Ada to see, historically what happened. Some person or persons had taken public documents. They were released for public reading that I wrote for the Ada Joint Program Office, an annual report, and they were selling them on Amazon for $300 a copy.
Holy cow.
Now this is like, 5 or 6 years after I retired, which means it was 20 some years from when I first wrote those. So the first thing I did was call the OSI. And I said, what if I told you that somebody was selling a document I wrote for the government out on the web and I'm not getting a cut? And he said, we're going to look into that. And I don't know what happened, but they were very, very interested. I don't care he was selling them, but I wasn't getting a kickback. So
you're right. Right? You're the one
Some
that
royalty there.
wrote it. I
I,
mean, there
I
should be
wanted
some
royalties.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what happens. Strange stuff can happen to you.
Wow.
Guys, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, thanks for being on the show. It's a huge honor to have you with us, especially on this episode tonight. So, what give us a little bit of background about how you kind of came to be with Wright Pat.
Well, I went to University of Detroit. I started in the fall of 1970. And after a couple of years, they have this thing called the Cooperative Education Program. So you finish freshman year, sophomore year, and then you're eligible to go off and do work studies. So you would go off and work for somebody for a semester, come back and go to school, work for a semester. And once you had completed 12 months and your educational requirements, then you would, of course, graduate.
Yeah.
So Wright Patterson Air Force Base had this large cooperative education program with the University of Detroit, and they wanted 4 students for my graduation year, and I was one of the students selected. So, first time away from home, I wound up sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 other engineers, one of whom turned out to be a fraternity brother, lifelong friend. We both took jobs here when we graduated. So I've actually had a connection to Wright Pat since 1973.
Wow.
And my career there spanned 5 decades, from January of 1973 through September of 2011, which was almost 39 years of continuous service.
Wow.
Man.
That is outstanding.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So what we're saying, people, is that boots on the ground.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
If people are going to know, this is the guy.
Yeah.
is where it's at.
And I was a snooper too. I'd look
You
in all
was
the dark corners.
Sure. So, with your books, you've written a series of books, and what kind of, because you went from being computer engineering and electrical engineering and things like that, what took you into the interest of this phenomena, the UFO phenomena?
That's a really good question, and I'll try to go from A to Z very quickly.
Campbell's condensed. We get it. We do that all the time.
Imagine it's January of 1973, and the Midwest is pretty gloomy in January, and first time away from home. I had a girlfriend at the time, serious girlfriend, so it was kind of sad. I was leaving, and I didn't know who I was rooming with, none of that. We were going to figure it all out on the fly. Well, my first week in that office I was assigned to, a guy named Al was my mentor. So he was like a GS11, I think it was a high GS11, mid-level engineer. Yeah. So he was the guy that was going to show me the ropes, introduce me to everybody, tell me how things work, get my time card filled out, just orient me to the base. And late in the first week or early the second week, he says, I'm going to take you through this hangar. So we had, you can see my hands, we had 2 business offices, and in between them was a 250-foot long unused airplane hangar. So we had a 2-story business office, and then on the other side of the hangar was the coffee shop. He said, I'm going to take you and get you a candy bar. So we step into this really dark hangar, and it's about 2.5 stories tall, because airplanes are big with the tails and the wings, and it's old, unused, and it had this heavy, like purplish blue curtains. It was really dark in there. So we step in, we go down this little ramp. I'm a co-op student. I really don't know Jack, and he turns to me and says, have you heard about our aliens?
Just that casually.
Wow.
And I'm like, now you can imagine, I only know this guy for like a handful of days, and he's walking me through this dark, creepy, 250-foot long hangar. And I'm thinking I should just turn around, right? Because it's shorter to go back. And I know the people back there. I don't know what's going to happen in this dark hangar. So we're walking through this. So we're walking through this dark hangar, and I go, okay, well, I'm going to play along. What aliens? She goes, well, back decades ago in the 40s, there was this crash out west, and they brought their machines and their occupants here. And I'm like, really? I said, well, what do they do with it? I said, well, they're in the tunnels. So now there's a revelation. We have tunnels? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, cool. Can we go see these aliens in the tunnels? Oh, no, we can't. Well, okay, Al, why not? Well, it's a secret.
You're doing a great job of keeping it, Al.
If it's a secret, like I might be a co-op student, but a secret is usually something that, you and the dead guy shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, well, tell me more. And so then, I learned as the days and weeks went on, because I talked to other people, I went, you wouldn't believe this stuff that Al told me, and I'd ask Doug in accounting, who was one of Al's friends. And he goes, oh yeah. So what I find out gradually is that Project Blue Book was there. I arrived in January of 73. Blue Book was there for 22 years up until December of 1969. So it was always in the local newspaper, it was always in the press, always on TV, Blue Book, Wright Pat. So Al had been there long enough where that was part of the culture, and he knew it, and he was just opening that story up, to me.
Yeah, it was just every day for Al at that point.
Yeah, and then where he got this, aliens were there, the machines were there, through the press, through the water cooler talk, whatever it was. So here is my baptism, the early introduction to this thing, and I can tell you that for the very first co-op session, that empty hangar was there. I heard stories about, the airplane flew into the hangar, and I will actually, if we have time, I will get back to where, the real hangar is, by the way. So that was the start of it. And then, you're raising families, you're going back to school, you're doing everything, you're playing softball, you're socializing, you're joining a ski club. And that stuff kind of falls back, but it never leaves your subconscious. You're always, anytime you go to a contractor and they're taking you into a facility, you're looking around for, could they have something in here? Could they be working on part of it? Or you find out what they're doing. What technologies are they good at? What kind of instrumentation do they have? Mm-hmm. But what really reignited it was in 1997 with the Phoenix Lights. And
yeah, that was more of a baptism by fire than a reignition. Like you had the interest, you had the behind the scenes knowledge, and then all of a sudden here this is on the TV. Yeah, that makes it come screaming back to the forefront.
It was huge, and I'm kind of a stickler for the truth. And the representative from the Public Affairs Office at Luke Air Force Base said, well, it was nothing. Then they changed their story and said, well, there were flares from this A-10 group that was out of, Baltimore. And, the story, it kept making the Air Force people look stupid. And I'm working for the Air Force. I'm a senior engineer at this time, and I'm going, this is BS. You've got to come up with better story. You're embarrassing yourself and the Air Force. Now, at that time, go ahead.
One of the things that never made sense to me about that explanation, being prior service, I've stood on the same flight line as an A-10 Warthog. It's called a Warthog for a reason. You put a bunch of them in a formation, you are going to hear that gaggle for miles. That is not, you could have, the Air Force could have thrown any other aircraft out there that would have been far less noisy than the A-10. But they said it was a group of A-10s. Everybody from 10 miles around would have known there was a group of A-10s flying around. You're
absolutely correct. And they're meant to go low and slow with 50 calibers.
Yeah. And
those massive engines. One day, it turns out that the Wright Pat twin base golf course, they have two 18s and a 9-holer there, as you know. They were doing touch and goes with A-10s one Sunday morning. I was playing with my regular group on the base at Twin Base, and they were doing a touch and goes. And literally, if I'm going down Fairway 6, to my left side is a ski road, one of the roads that the Air Force Marathon runs on, then the skeet shooting range and the flight line. So I'm 100 yards away, and they're doing touch and goes, and they're coming right across the 6th fairway.
Yeah.
And I'm with a couple of former military guys.
Your bones.
Yeah, and they look at each other and go, "Do we need to take cover?" because it was so loud. So anyway, back in 1997, at that time, we're now connected via the internet, and they have a thing called the Global Access List, the GAL, which means that if I have a guy's first and last name and I know what base he's on, I can find his email address in the global, and then I can email him. So the public affairs guy, his name is out there. He's Captain Muckety Schmuck. So I look up Muckety Schmuck and I send him an email going, if you can't talk more intelligently, just shut up, okay? Because you are making the entire Air Force look stupid. And so that was me and other guys, in the office area who were totally offended by the inanity of it all. Of course, we never heard back from the guy because they probably took him into the mountains and shot him, which would have been what he deserved.
Right.
But that incident really fired me up again for all of those reasons. And from that point, I was doing a lot of TDY, so I could go to places and maybe get an hour in somewhere, or go at night on my own time and go to a place and do some research, like in Exeter, for example. That's how all of that started. So the L thing. Have you heard of our aliens in 1997? And then, you fast forward to 2008, and I find myself at Hanscom Air Force Base, and I'm the wellness director for Air Force Research Labs, which means all of our, we had people at Hanscom, we had people at Eglin in Florida, people at a Mesa site.
That's where I was. I was at Eglin.
At Eglin. So we had them all over the country. So I, for a couple of years, got to travel to all of these sites that AFRL owned and set up wellness centers. So I could go, when I went to Mesa site, I could go and investigate the Phoenix Lights. And when I went to Hanscom, I could go and drive the 35 minutes to Exeter, New Hampshire. I could investigate that. When I went to Eglin, I could go off and I could do, the sightings there. I'm trying to Gulf Breeze.
I was going to say Gulf Breeze. It's right there.
Yeah. So all of these TDYs now were putting me within, a stone's throw of famous UFO things. And I thought, well, I don't know how long my career was going to last. It turns out I had an auto accident and, I had to retire early, but that allowed me to do the boots on the ground and find old witnesses and new witnesses and dig into sites. And when I went out, aliens, no aliens, don't care. All I wanted to know was there any truth to what I'd been hearing for 30 some years?
Yeah, you got to kind of put it together, don't you? It's like it's pockets. You kind of jump from one thing to the next, but don't you find? I mean, it's amazing. You were literally put in the position to where you could actually investigate those things.
What a stroke! And I'd get my work done and I could go off in the evening or first thing in the morning. Like if I didn't have an event till 10 or 10:30, whatever it is. Because as a wellness director, I go in and we would hire local nurses. And one of the things they would do would be medical screenings. So everyone would get a blood pressure check. At one point they were doing intravenous retrieval of blood and then spin the serum down and do cholesterol. Then they did the finger stick method, which is much better, just a drop of blood. So we were getting that done. We would hire companies to do AFib testing, and it just, depending on what group I would bring in, it would determine the schedule for the day or the week or that sort of thing. So I did have those nice packets of time where I got to go off, and then it turns out that the more, as a scientist, Air Force had problems, and then I would put a team together or do a study or do research and determine, is there a solution I can already apply, or do I have to create a solution myself, or do I have to hire contractors to do it? So that's the way I worked in my career.
Yeah.
And somebody just shut us down.
There we go. We're back.
We're back.
Okay, we're back. So I did the same thing with the UFO thing. As I said, okay, what can I find out? Do the research, look for witnesses, and I tried to poke holes in all the stories. I couldn't do it. In my first book, there's a whole chapter of the day I spent with Travis Walton at his abduction site. So if anybody, you know, I went and found those witnesses of that caliber, and I actually had a chance to do a photo shoot with Travis for the movie Travis. I have a photo credit in there for doing some of the work, and you get to look the guy in the eye, and you know he's in my 4x4 going down a slippery mud road for a couple of hours to get to the abduction site, and on the way back, and having dinner, and spending the whole afternoon at the site shooting photos and picking his brain and talking to him. And the more I dug in to try to find a hole, the more corroboration I found. And that's what happened as I went through all of these things, and which resulted in my first book.
Wow.
You know, I think one of the worst things that happened to Travis,
the movie,
is the movie,
yeah.
the Fire in the Sky movie, because his actual encounter, like Ron has said multiple times, is far more intricate and involved.
It's more interesting
than what
I got to sit and talk to the guy about, you know, he had no idea that they were going to do that. They wouldn't, you know, you don't know what's going to happen when you make those things. They edit stuff, Hollywood magic, but you know, like he said back then, he was terrified, and today has a completely different look on the thing, you know. And the more we get now with this near field exposure, Gary Nolan's research that says, you know, that they studied, you know, these close contact experiences, stories like Travis's make more sense.
Yep.
A lot more sense. So,
let's segue for a minute, and we can bounce back to whatever you want to. But this, the filming of the movie, the Travis movie. All right.
Now the Travis movie.
No, that was good. That was the one he did, right?
Well, Fire in the Sky was you know, the Hollywood one.
That was the Hollywood.
Travis was Jen Stein's movie, the one that I did the one that I did the photo shoot for. But let's. The point I want to make is that, in my experience, you can do an interview taped by some reporter, and he'll ask you the questions, you'll give them the answers, and then they'll write what they want to.
Yeah.
It happens newspaper, it happens radio. You know, if you look at, type my name in and type in like Szymanski, UFO, and the Sun, the Globe, the Daily Mirror, all the rags in UK, almost nothing except my name is right in those articles. Nothing. And in Expedition X, the writers had a story. Here's the story they wanted to tell. They wanted to tell a story that the Mothman was a government experiment gone bad. So they contacted me, and now they don't tell me what the storyline is. They just tell me, like, Josh Gates met you in Roswell. He read your book because I gave it to him, and you're his Wright Pat guy. He wants you to be in this premiere, and if you can get us on the base, that would be great. Well, the timeline was too short. They contacted me with like 6 weeks, and if you want to film it Wright Pat, it takes like 3 months to go through all the
all the paperwork and red tape.
All the paperwork. So they don't tell me what the storyline is, but as we get nearer to the filming, I wound up getting them in Miamisburg Mound. That's the 18-foot thick nuclear processing development R&D center in Miamisburg of Ohio. Mm-hmm. So I wound up, to my connections, getting permission to film part of the episode in there, which is where I appear. So about 4 weeks prior, they're sending me all these articles written by who knows who about, could this Mothman have been a government experiment gone bad? Well, I'm a government experiment guy. I was in the lab for almost 40 years. I know how to run an experiment. And I said, in no uncertain terms, in writing, on the phone, in smoke signals, this was not a government thing. Impossible. And I laid it all out for them. I swear to God, we show up in Miamisburg, and they've got a folder with all of those clippings of those things. And they wanted me to whip that out and say it was a government thing after I spent a month telling them, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So I kept that thing tucked to my side, and she's like, pull the folder out. And I was thinking, I'm going to shove this up your butt if you.
Yeah.
This is where that folder's going. So what they did is they do a Frankenbite. They ask you questions,
Chop it up.
And then they Frankenstein it all together.
And they stitch it together. So I'll finish up the story here. My son's watching it, and my son is a big fan of all this stuff, my older son. And I'm sitting watching it. I know he's in his house watching it, and Josh Gates comes on, and he goes, and now we're going to bring on my Wright Pat guy. Well, I turn to my wife, and I go, who are they bringing on? Because Josh at that point had never called me his Wright Pat guy. And I said, I did the filming. I was like getting mad. Who could they possibly have brought on? The next thing I know is my face is on the screen.
Yeah.
And then they walk us through and they Frankenbite it and they say something I didn't say. The phone rings. It's my kid. You didn't say that, did you?
Well, it's one of the things they this is pertaining to Mothman too, and it's relevant to the Frankenbite. There was a documentary that came out that went and they filmed Jeff Walmsley, who is the curator of the museum and the festival and all that stuff. He was stitched into saying it's pure evil.
It's pure evil. Yeah, I remember him telling me that.
When
Yeah.
When what happened was they were asking, the actual phrase that he said was, there's a lot of people that think that this thing is just pure evil. They cut that first bit out. They inserted a question ahead of what it was. And then the only part they ran was, it's pure evil.
That's the stuff that sells. Ray, I am so glad you set that straight. You have no idea how glad I am that you just set that straight.
Well, I was on a recent show. It's a brand new series. It's really cool. It's called Mission Unexplained. Okay. It's on the Science Channel, and it airs on Tuesdays. I think the reruns happen Monday, and then pre. So mine aired a couple weeks ago, and they had contacted me last summer and said, we want to do a documentary about you because you're the Wright Pat guy.
The Wright Pat guy. There you go.
And I said,
in the end, right?
Yeah. I said, well, you must have watched the Josh Gates guy. So I said, but I'm not that interesting, but I've got a great book. They told me it was about military people, military stories. I said, I'm not the story. The story is Colonel Gary K. Carroll, who intercepted a flying saucer in an Air Force jet. So we negotiated. They got my book. I gave him some snippets I have 30 hours of audio from Colonel Carroll. So I, did that as a good faith gesture to show that I can back up every quote in my book came straight from a piece of audio that I own, video too. So we go through, and they're really honest people, really hardworking people. And I watched the show, and I'm going to give them a 90, like it's still an A. But at one point, what they did is, here's the story. The story is that people on the base have sheets of paper that are 8.5 by 11. Now, this is a blank sheet, but on the sheet of paper, you'll see like the Klingon battleship, Sputnik, a weather balloon, the Enterprise, and like 12 different images of airborne things, the stealth fighter. And on the top, it says Air Force UFO identification chart. And under each object, it says weather balloon, weather balloon, weather balloon.
I've seen that.
But under the weather balloon, it says swamp gas.
Yep.
So the story I told during the filming was that if you saw this little chart in somebody else's office, it was the sign that you could come in and talk about flying saucers. It was like, oh, you're interested in it too, and it's a no judgment zone. So that was the secret symbol if you saw it in somebody's cubicle. Well, what they Frankenbited it was, they had me talk about Project Blue Book in the office and that kind of thing. And when they Frankenbited it, it came out, I was in the office of Project Blue Book. And as I went into their office, on the door was this big poster that was like that little 8.5 by 11, and they frankenbited that together.
Oh man.
Oh my
So
gosh.
other than the fact that they got my retirement year wrong, and I need to go back to the government and tell them they owe me more money, because if I really retired in 15, they owe
Yeah,
me
you got
4%.
more points.
They owe me 4% more.
Yeah.
But they frankenbited it. I'm going to give them a 90 because up to that point, everything was true. They used the audio, video exactly as I gave it to them. They didn't frankenbite it. They told a pure story, but they made the other one up. And so I'm calling them out on it. Sorry, guys, but you did it.
Now I've got to say, there's we have been lucky enough and fortunate enough to work with really good production companies.
So far,
that have
So
just
far.
done a
So
really
far.
good job. Because I worked, I've done some consulting stuff with travel, and that was cool. But I worked with Animal Planet Discovery with Finding Bigfoot. That was fantastic. There was everything that happened that was recorded. That's what was used. Like, it was unreal. I thought that for sure it was going to be kind of frankenbited and chopped up and spliced and sliced, and it was just there. It was. So that to me, I found that mildly impressive. But
Yeah, you got lucky.
we've been fortunate to have worked with production companies that have been pretty on the straight and narrow.
But they have a storyline, and they
Yeah,
want you to fill the storyline. And I'm thinking, this is exciting enough. Do we have to make stuff up to make it more exciting? We don't. I mean, this guy is on the record, the highest ranking man ever to come forward and say, I intercepted a flying saucer in a fighter jet.
Yeah.
I don't see, and this happened. I mean, our book came out 2 months before that 9-page government ODNI report that came out that said flying saucers
The
are
original
real.
ODNI, yeah.
So we knew we were on the edge. And Colonel Carroll kept saying, "We're on the edge, man." I mean, but he knew he was dying of cancer.
Yeah.
He was just worried for me that there might be some blowback on me. But then, of course, they let the air out of the balloon on the 25th of June, right? Because they said flying saucers are real.
For real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
With that, it's so surreal right now. Being interested in what we've been interested in for as long as we've been interested in it.
I'm just sitting back and saying, I told y'all so.
Right. You are.
That's literally all I've been doing, and it's great.
But looking at this, like you said, just all the air came out of the balloon, and you're like, all right, okay.
Now what?
Now what?
I got to ask, man. Did you got to see the tunnels, right? Like the actual tunnels underneath, or did you just hear about them?
No. Anybody
Could go.
who's worked in a major complex should not be surprised that a complex that large has tunnels. You have headquarter buildings like it used to be called ASC. I don't know what it's called now, and then AFRL. Buildings 15, 16, whatever. They're large, 3-4 story complexes, business offices. We call them the head shed because the general's in one and the general's in the other. Underneath, they're connected by tunnels because a lot of times they have to have meetings, and going across the street in a Midwest winter with a blizzard's not a good thing. So there are tunnels there. But the cool thing is when you go in those tunnels, vault door, vault door, vault door, vault door. So people are doing, if they have to have a classified meeting, the head folks can go in there. There might be a little mini lab set up there where they're doing classified work. The fact that we have tunnels and vaults will only shock people who've not been on an Air Force base.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, what's in there? Are there aliens in there?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, but think about it. We have 25,000 people working at Wright Pat. We have over 600 buildings. We have over 8,000 acres. A lot of that stuff's classified. We got to have tunnels. We got to have vaults. Hey, at one time they had nuclear weapons stored there.
Yep.
It was come
You
on.
can't just put that in a closet.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can't store nuclear weapons in a storage closet. You've got to have a facility. One, you have to have a facility large enough. Two, you have to have a facility that is going to be able to withstand incidental detonation.
Well, I mean, you got to look at it, Joe. I mean, we had the same thing down here at the ordnance plant. They had
Yeah.
secret tunnels underneath there that they actually were shipping stuff out under the street and out to the waterways onto the barges so they could get them
Right.
out. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the fact we hear a lot of these people talking about these secret bases and dumbs and all this, and it's great for books, but it's a part of things. I mean, aside from. Yeah, it is. I mean,
there's rumors that the bunkers under the Greenbrier have tunnels that just aren't made public.
Oh yeah, you can
probably
go that one.
But probably like secret offshoots. You mean? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
That all makes sense. You know, you got to get out of there somehow, or you got to get people in unnoticed. It all makes sense, but I'm just surprised how dazzled people are about the word tunnel. Oh, you have tunnels.
Well, yeah.
Sure, of course we do have. Of course we have tunnels. Yeah. Most of them are utility tunnels, you know, old steam lines and electrical and water and that sort of thing. And they're all in tunnels for the most part, or parts of them are in tunnels.
Because they were designed for maintenance to be performed to be able to have ease of access as well. So they're big enough for multiple people to walk down and side by side. You've got a large enough area to move around. And then some of them, like you said, some of the old maintenance ones, you can drive a vehicle down them.
Oh, yeah.
It shouldn't surprise you. I mean, I was surprised. I was a co-op student. And I hadn't been out of that office. I'd gone nowhere but the office into the dark hangar. And then when he goes, we got tunnels. I went, got tunnels?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
it's your first exposure to tunnels. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a surprise thing for a guy who's like 18, 19 years old. And, you know, he's on his first week at the Air Force Base. It was a surprise, but it's all downhill from there, boys. I tell you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the importance of the whole thing, though. It's like everybody thinks that because it's underground, it's necessarily got to be some kind of diabolical this or that, right? Exactly. But it's just functionality. It's functionality. I mean,
like
so
in DC, there's tunnels that go all over DC that connect all the government buildings together.
Yeah. So look, folks, here's what we're saying: tunnels are real. Tunnels are factual. There may or may not be aliens in them. We don't know, but it's okay. Tunnels are cool. That's what we're trying to get at.
So with you being at Wright Pat and having the experience that you had there, plus being able to travel all over the country, doing different TDYs, like what to you was the biggest standout case that you were able to work with?
The biggest standout case?
Yeah, the one that just is like kind of your, it's the big centerpiece on your mantle.
I would have to say that the big centerpiece on the mantle is the Colonel Carroll story, is the swamp gas my ass. Yeah. And it's because I had a personal connection to it. I grew up in Detroit. I grew up on the south side of Detroit City Airport. And 20 miles northeast, just northeast from where I grew up, was Selfridge Air Force Base. And in 1966, we had the swamp gas flying saucers all over southeastern Michigan. They were reportedly seen by the personnel at Selfridge Air Force Base. They were seen all over. I'll just name some names like Ann Arbor. They were seen in Flint. They were seen downriver in River Rouge. They were seen near the nuclear plant. So all in that cluster. What a lot of people don't know is that in 1966, that area was surrounded by Nike nuclear-tipped defensive missiles. So if you needed a magnet for, another civilization to come examine you, well, you had an entire ring around Detroit and the northern suburbs because it was an industrial center and they wanted to protect it in case we went to war because, we're making airplanes and tanks and everything. We can quickly switch over all of our plants from automobiles to, the war machine. So that's why Detroit was protected with all those Nike missiles. That would have been a huge draw. Plus, nuclear research was going on, University of Michigan. They had a radio tower there just north where Frank Manor and his son saw the flying saucer go down on their property. Well, they had this huge radio telescope there. It was it could collect and transmit. So that was like another magnet. Well, I am, living in the shadow of Selfridge, and we heard the jets occasionally break the sound barrier because they could go Mach 2. So it was not unusual, especially on a Saturday, man. Those guys would probably drink on Friday, Saturday. Yeah, let's juice that thing.
Yeah.
And you could. We on many occasions we heard them break the sound barrier. So the fact that I found the guy who actually could prove that he intercepted the swamp gas flying saucer, one of them from 1966, has to be, my holy grail because of where I lived, where I grew up, literally 20 miles as the crow flies. And then what are the odds, that I'm going to find this guy and that he's in a position where he wants to tell me and can prove he did it. He can prove who he was, where he was, when he was, to me, that's is really, that's huge. It's the icing on the cake. It's the icing on the cake.
It all right back to your hometown, where you were at, like growing up, seeing all the stuff, hearing the news reports, all the Blue Book stuff. I mean, that's awesome.
Huge documentation and
to be able to wrap that up in a package and put that out where people can get a hold of it.
Well, I did the recordings. A lot of the transcriptions are in the book. A lot of the photos, never before published, I got from him. Those are out there. So his whole story, he gave me access to everything I asked for, and then some. Wow. He gave me his official military records. I published those in the book so people can see he was a jet jockey with 5,000 hours. He had all the training, all his training sites are in there where he was, where he was assigned. It shows he was at Selfridge during that time period. I have the official DD-214 of his wingman that day that I got from his family. We put all that out there. There were no restrictions. If I asked, can I publish this? Yeah, we're going to tell the whole story with whatever evidence we have.
That is fantastic.
That is. That's good documentation right there and due diligence. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So that for me, that was like the coolest, but I would say the coolest field adventure had to be my day with Travis Walton.
Oh, I'm sure.
I can imagine. Now, that is the documentary where they went out and confirmed the radiation at the site, isn't it? Is that the one that this was?
I mean, the Travis movie produced by Jen Stein?
Yeah.
I don't believe that they might have inserted radiation information from prior measurements. My role in this whole thing.
That was it. Yeah.
Do you guys want to hear an interesting story?
Heck
yeah, absolutely.
Let's have it.
Great. Here's how crazy the universe is. I'm at the International UFO Congress in Fountain Hills, Arizona, and I meet a woman by the name of Jen Stein. I don't know Jen Stein from Adam. I hardly know anybody in the community. She says, we're having a dinner tonight with a group of people, but like 12 people, and I'd like you to join us. So, of course. And then, and it was like a who's who. In fact, the photograph is in my first book, 50 Shades of Grays. And I have the photograph of the people who were at that table. And included is Travis Walton. So during the evening, I'm having a conversation. I'm trying to think of who was to my right. Paul Davids, who did the Roswell movie. Paul Davids is to my right. And I'm kind of leaning over him, talking to Jen a little bit, and the people across, and there's some other well-known UFO folks there. And Jen finds out that while I'm in Arizona that week, I'm going to go try to find the Travis Walton abduction site. So I've researched it enough on the internet and talked to people where I've got some coordinates and I know I can get within 100 yards and I'm going to find it. I did not know at the time, that Jen was filming with Travis up there. I didn't even know they had a connection. So I tell her this out of the blue. And so the dinner breaks up and I tell her, well, I'm going to go do this. She said, well, look at, and this is the first I find out that she's doing a movie. she said, "Do you have a camera?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I have a professional camera." She said, "Would you be able to take some pictures of the trees up there? They've been cut down in that area right where the abduction happened. And I want you to take photos of the tree rings because, and you tell me, I'm not going to prejudice your study. You tell me if you notice anything unusual." And I said, "Well, now, Jen, I'm going up there. I've got like 3 days allocated, but I don't know if I can find a place because I don't have the exact coordinates. I only, I only did this from the internet." She goes, "I've got somebody I think that can help you find the place. Just when are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go like on Monday." I go, "Great, great. Who is that?" She goes, "Travis, get over here."
Wow.
Fantastic.
And Travis had been turned around talking to somebody. He hears Jen's voice. He turned us on over. "Yeah, what's up?" She goes, "You're going with Ray. You're meeting on Monday up in Heber. You're going to take him to the site. He's going to do a photo shoot for me." What? My mind went, what?
That's nuts.
Isn't it crazy how that works out?
Yeah.
It's insane.
We've seen it multiple times, Ray.
Well, we've been a part of it,
Yeah, it's crazy.
The way that we got
It's crazy.
with Bob Gimlin was just
Bob,
that same
Stan,
account, and Stan,
Dave. It's all been like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's awesome though. But yeah, that is pretty phenomenal. I mean, it really is.
That blew my mind. I got to spend a day with him. It's
That's great.
Really cool. And a lot of the pictures from that day are in my first book.
Okay.
So here in a minute, we'll plug all the books and we'll tell people where to get them and all that stuff. But we talked about Roswell for a little bit in the beginning, and we talked about your time there with Wright Pat. Let's bring it into the modern, like today.
Oh yeah.
All right.
What's
because we know your mind has had to definitely change at this point, because mine changes every week now.
So how do you feel about what all is happening right now with what the Fed is doing with their it's basically disclosure. It's not a UFO on the White House lawn yet, but essentially it's there. What do you think about how this is all being handled and the information that we've been handed so far?
They are total amateurs. They are so far behind.
Yeah.
I see you nodding. If you looked at the hearings,
Yes.
there was the one representative or senator, and I won't quote the famous event that he was referring to, but it was a very famous event, like say Kecksburg, because all right, we'll plug Stan Gordon for a bit. So Kecksburg, everybody knows Kecksburg, the big acorn and all that, and so the representative asks the guys who are running this investigation, "Hey, what's your opinion on Kecksburg?" And it was like the deer in the headlights.
Yep.
Yeah. It was.
Kecksburg.
What?
do you
So
mean?
I don't have anything on. No. Do you?
Yeah. He,
Yep.
And his aides are in the back scribbling, "Kecksburg, we got to look this up."
Yep.
So
we thought the same thing. We covered this. We covered it live while it was on the air. We did.
Yeah, it was great, man. It was great. We did a play-by-play.
Essentially a mystery science theater
It was
2000
beautiful.
with this.
It was
event
beautiful.
going on in the background. And the exact instance that you're talking about, I know exactly which case it is. I know exactly which moment where they're like, well, we don't have anything on that. I can't speak to that. And
But we'll get back to you
need
on
tell
that.
us something.
We'll get back to you on
I want
that.
to know. You will get back to me ASAP. I want to know by the next hearing what you have on this. We were just like, yes.
It was great.
they are. There's an expression, but it's a family show, so I'm not going to say it. They are so far behind.
Yeah.
There's no hope. There is literally no hope unless they enlist the help of people like you, people like me, the Stan Gordons of the world, the people who are out there and willing to help. I would love to help. They could reemploy me.
Yeah.
Reinstate my clearance. Give give me my salary back, and I would do this for a couple of years. I really would, because I can help them. I know I can, because I could be there and I could answer almost any historical question. Just give me a week to brush up again, and I could just save them all that embarrassment.
I mean,
And it's absolute embarrassment. You're absolutely right. And it's just like you can watch them trip over the lies that either they're telling lies or the lies that they believe. And it's just absolutely ludicrous. Like every single one of these has been absolutely ludicrous.
So speaking of that, there's something I've been interested in.
Go ahead,
your
Brandon.
opinion, Ray. So you remember last December when they kept chasing down these UFOs, and then that you suddenly would just stop hearing about it, and they claimed they were all weather balloons or something like that. Based on your research and the books you've written and the people you've talked to, what do you make of all that? Like, do you think they actually found something, or do you think this is just secret technology?
Who did the report? The ATIP people, or the study group from the ODNI?
Arrow.
Arrow.
It was probably Arrow.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I try not to keep up with the day-to-day stuff and Gresh and Grosh or whatever his name is, because it's a waste of my energy. This guy is like third tier. Let me give you a little warning about security clearances.
Yeah.
A person with no security clearance has the potential to know more about something, if they're in the right place and time, than a whole office full of people who have the highest security clearances.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. The person with the highest clearance may not have any idea, simply because of their workload or their interest or being read in or whatever, about a specific program that other people who don't have clearances or low-level clearances know about. So when a guy comes along, and I think in psychology they call this appeal to authority, and governments use this a lot, where they put a person on with these great credentials, and everyone's supposed to believe what he says because he has these great credentials. So I find I ignore those people who, like you guys did on the show today, thank you, all my credentials, and I'm supposed to be that much more believable. No, I'm believable because I do my homework.
Yeah.
And it's same with these guys. I can't follow them because their story could change. They could be denounced. And it's just, I'm more interested in taking a problem and digging it to ground, digging it to bedrock, like stories that people come in and I know, like the Colonel Carrolls of the world, who have a story that are worth retelling because I know that I can find enough evidence to corroborate everything. So
Right.
I'm more interested in that than the daily goings on of who cited what and are they retracting it. I don't watch the news anymore. I haven't watched the news in 20 years. Who's president, by the way? Who's
It's okay. You haven't missed anything.
You haven't missed much.
You haven't missed anything, my friend. It's all good.
So I quit following the news back in, I think it was 2019, 2018. I just quit cold turkey. And like my wife will now, I used to give her all these stats and all these different things that were going on. The only thing that I actually keep my finger on is the pulse of geopolitics and what's going on overseas, when, where, how. So that way I know how much food I got to put in the pantry.
Yeah, I watch it. You know,
like, that's the only thing I pay attention to. The day-to-day stuff I don't really have a whole lot of time for, but I have been keeping track with this just because, you know, the nature of our show and what
there's
we
a
do.
pattern. There's an absolute pattern, and the pattern has never changed. It's the exact same pattern that's been going on since the 60s. There's the groups that want to say something, and others are like, no, you can't say that. So let's change it, and let's make this or that, or change an acronym to make it more acceptable. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a constant battle towards potential truth, but only a handful know the truth, and they don't really want us to know. Let's be real. It doesn't matter what you call it. Disclosure starts at home. And like you said, you've talked to people, and you yourself, you've sat there and you've talked with witnesses, and you know they're not lying to you. So that's all that really matters. And then when you get out there and tell those stories, the people who understand, the people who have had these experiences, they see that as validation. And to me, I think that that is far more valuable work than you coming out there with a laundry list of, I worked in this government program, I blah, 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 you know, and then I saw this alien. And it's okay. You talked to an actual witness who did see that stuff, and you got to know that witness. It wasn't just a, oh, okay, I write it down. All right, that's cool. You actually got to know them. That's the different thing, Ray. And I think that that is the kind of accounts that we need. I know that some call this anecdotal evidence, but here's the thing about anecdotal evidence. It's still evidence.
Yeah.
Let's think. You know the truth. You know the truth. You know the truth. I know the truth. So come this August, the Mutual UFO Network is having a symposium in Cincinnati. And for me, it's an hour drive, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to get to a relevant point here. And it has to do with your question about disclosure and what you and I know about the truth. So the theme of the symposium is aliens, friend or foe. Now think about that for a minute. It took the U.S. government, and I'm not knocking the U.S. government. Trust me, I work for them. They pay my salary. I have the ultimate respect for people who have to do those jobs. But the entity known as the U.S. government on this particular topic, despite hundreds of thousands of cases and with great evidence, it took them 75 years to finally say, we might have flying saucers. Now, fast forward 2 months from now, the 24th through 27th of August in Cincinnati at the MUFON conference, and we're going to be talking about whether the aliens that have been abducting people are friend or foe. How many decades or centuries is it going to take the U.S. government to go, oh, by the way, people have been abducted too? Is that going to be another 75 years? I can't wait for that. That's why I don't watch the news.
He's right. He's 100% right. And we talked about this, that there's like phases, right? We said that there would be, we called it from day one, literally. We literally said that, you know, since 2017, it was building up and building up. You know, it started with the whole Oumuamua thing, and then, you know, the We're Not Alone, the cover on National Geographic, and there's just a whole list of this pattern. And we followed the patterns, and we have literally been right on with what's pretty much going to happen within 6 months.
Based off the patterns that
it's predictable. They are not smart, like you said. Yeah. But the thing being is, and I really like your idea there. I like the topic, friend or foe, and that's kind of scary. And I think that it's interesting to me that was where they ran to, not MUFON, but where when Grush did come out with his thing, you know, that's where the news immediately ran to. Oh, these may not be friendly encounters. Okay, but they may not necessarily be hostile encounters either. They may be interpretations of, you know, how we interpret these things as well. I mean, you and me both know.
It could be a scenario like, you know, think of it from a biologist standpoint or a wildlife biologist standpoint. You go out into the bush with a trank gun, you shoot a gazelle because you're trying to run a study on it. You're not just going to walk up to the gazelle, pet it on the head, hey, how you doing, follow me, and walk back into a room and go do some tests. No, this thing's not going to come with you willingly. So you're going to hit it with a trank dart, you're going to drag it by its feet, throw it on a table, do what you do, and then lay it back down in the bush and be like, okay, see you later, and leave.
I think bears are a better analogy with that one, just because, you know, we've seen that, you know, as far as it goes, for real. But
that's true, for real. We had so just to fill you in on that snippet, we had a radioactive track casts that we pulled out of the ground that were from a bear that literally its trackway disappears. It became untrackable. There was only one direction it could have gone that it would have, and it still would have left tracks, and that was uphill. And it was up a very steep hill. And as large as this bear was, I mean, the paws are,
they're big.
They're huge. As a state record size bear. It would have been very easy to monitor and look at where this thing was going up the hill, because it's like I said, very steep incline. There's a rope tied to a tree up there, and like kids will use it to kind of like hold the rope and walk up with their feet. It's that steep. So you'd been able to track it easy. Bear just disappears, gone.
But the thing is, we keep running into this, and I don't know what it is. And, you know, I know that there are people out there who are saying, you know, we're dealing with aliens or et cetera. I think it's far more than that. And I think it's an ancient, whatever it is, it's been here a long time. It's an intelligence from every point of you know, label that we throw at it. I'm not going to do that. I don't like the labels, because if we do that, we get really hung up into issues, and then we have to change acronyms every, you know, 3 years. It gets very annoying, but it does. I mean, it's true.
UFO.
Yeah, it's UAP. It's UFO. Now it's back to, you know, UAP, and now it's back to UFOs, because now they think TR3B. Thank you. There's so many
TR3B.
there's so many of these acronyms and words and conspiracies, when the truth is so much more interesting. The truth is there's something there, and we have no actual clue as to what it is biologically, or if it even is biological in nature. But there's something there, and it's external, and it's very intelligent. And
So
I will cover all that at your Flatwoods monster thing. I'm going to drop a massive truth bomb in West Virginia.
Sweet.
oh man,
It's
that's
going-
awesome.
You make sure your public television is there.
That is
Make sure
awesome.
public TV is there
we can.
filming it. Yeah,
We
it's going to be
can-
great.
We can definitely make sure
Make sure
that
you're holding that folder under your arm too.
yeah, we're going to give you a prop folder to hold under your
Yeah.
arm. No,
Yes.
I'm kidding. Totally
Well,
kidding.
you know what I did with the last one. Do you want me to coat it with Crisco?
Oh,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
you go.
Please.
There you go.
It makes the process easier.
But no, and I think that it's wonderful that you are going that route. But seriously, because I think that's important. It's a discussion that needs to be had, and people are kind of just dancing around that, aren't they? I mean, that's what we're seeing. They're just dancing around that. It's okay to say that there's glowing orbs all over the world. It's okay to say that there's, you know, UFOs and, you know, but they're just dancing around the other issues at this point. And if you're saying one thing's right and one thing could be real, then you got to admit all these other, you know, 4 million people may have had similar experiences, is all I'm saying.
For all of us who have studied this for so long, it just reminds me of the little kid whose hand is caught in a cookie jar, and he goes, oh, and he's crumbs all over his face. I didn't have any cookies. I don't know what's going on. Dude, you can't be that stupid. You
Yeah.
can't be. Because if you are, we're in trouble.
We are in trouble.
If that's representative of our government leadership, we are in trouble.
We have said this multiple times, and we say it all the time. We see this in the paranormal community, in the research community. You know, they want to just gingerly look at some of these things and laugh them off because they don't want them to be true. They can't have them being true. But they don't have this contingency plan for, oh my God, what if it is true? And there's a lot of evidence that says, yeah, it is true. So
With
paradigm shifts are coming. That's what I'm getting at. There's massive paradigm shifts coming.
with this conference coming up in August, what do you feel the temperature is going to kind of be in the room? Because, you know, you've got all these various people who go around, you know, the circuit and push agendas and push ideas. We're moving into this conference. Like, where do you sense the temperature is going to be?
You know, Avi Loeb, the guy from Harvard, he's
Avi,
going to be
yeah.
one of the speaker there. He's going to come in via a Zoom thing. So they've got, I mean, that's a very big name talking
big.
about recovering artifacts from the bottom of the ocean. I think, you know, MUFON is geared towards, we collect all the data and we try not to take a position. But if you look at their data they've collected, it becomes obvious that, you know, we've been visited and things are going on. And what I like about them, what I'm seeing so far is some of the conferences like to hire for the conference 1 or 2 people who they know, like Seth Shotstack, the guy who's the debunker. And then, you know, there was this other moron. They like to do that because they say, well, we don't want to preach to the choir the whole time. We want you to think about, well, the possibility that everything isn't true.
Yeah, the
I'm looking down
cognitive dissonance side of it.
Yeah, I'm looking down the MUFON roster of speakers, and everyone seems to be, I want to produce the facts. You make up your own mind, and that's what it's about. And we actually had to write a paper. This was not just throw some viewfoils up there, some PowerPoints. You had to write a paper, okay, and then that got judged and moved forward. So. And you had to put a lot of thought into it. A PowerPoint thing I can do in an hour. So I'm thinking what you're going to hear in the conference in August is going to be varied opinions on whether or not contact with this alien species, multiple species, is good or bad. I have my opinion. I know Yvonne Smith is a speaker. I know her. I know what her opinion is. Kathleen Martin's there. She's, Betty and Barney Hill's niece. She's got her opinions. The last lady speaking had a miracle cure by the aliens, which is rare. So she's got her position. So I think the positions are going to be all over the map, but I think they're going to be based in evidence rather than in a friend of a friend, told me. Well, these are people who have freaking hypnotically regressed 2,000 people. So I think it's going to be very evidence based.
That's really
great
really here. And we've seen that as a whole since probably 2018. We've seen a big move in that with every type of conference within the weird. So paranormal conferences, Bigfoot conferences, UFO stuff. We've seen a migration and a setting back and putting down your opinions and presenting evidence.
We just did it. We just did it in Wytheville. We literally just did that in Wytheville.
Yeah, we did.
The case for contact that we did there in Wytheville. I mean, we didn't give anyone, tell them what to believe. I think that's the most ridiculous thing you can do is tell someone what to believe. Here's the data. Do with it as you shall. I mean, I don't care.
I don't care. I'm not out to, run a church or tell people what to believe. I'm there to say, hey, I'm clever enough to get people to talk to me and tell me the truth and give me the evidence that they can back it up. And then only then will I move their story forward if I think it needs to be told.
There you go.
And that's the way I operate because, I've got a great government retirement. I'm not on the UFO cocktail circuit. I'm not making my money that way. I'm not making really any money that way because my expenses usually exceed, my bar bill.
We understand. We
feel that on an
totally
emotional level.
understand, my friend. For real. You can't.
Talk to Dave about my honorarium, man.
Jeez, we got you on that. Trust me. Jeez.
Oh man.
Gosh. But I'll tell you, fantastic. I mean, it really is. And like you said, the work, we're moving into a different era. We're moving into a different, I guess, a different time and a different time frame, different way to think about these things. At least it's not like it was. That's what I'm trying to get at. Because when I was growing up, you didn't talk about that. And if you did, they thought you were nuts. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm an experiencer. I've experienced things since 1975, 1976 is one of the two. And I didn't say anything 25 years before I started even mentioning it outside of a close group of friends. And now I don't care. And I think I've gotten that way because after I started talking, I had so many people come up and be like, they don't know me. And it's like they found something in that. I'm like, well, that's what it's all about. It's about validating these people. And every time that you get to go out and you say something that does validate one of these people, that's more than I got. Let's put it that way. I mean, and I think that's great. I think it's wonderful that, you guys are going out and doing this kind of stuff and catching the data. Same thing we're doing. We're just all doing it a different way, but we're all doing the same work. It's a collective.
With the government now doing their thing and going out there, I've almost lost interest in the whole thing because when I did my investigation, when I started it, I was only looking for the truth for me. And it didn't matter. And I wasn't going to write a book, but I had all these interesting stories. And someone said, hey, maybe, and then it got away from me. But for me, I would rather work on my golf game now. I want to learn how to play the guitar late in life. I got a new grandson. He's just,
It's awesome.
just awesome. I want to spend more time with him. So I'm really moving away from this whole thing, and I'm good. I'm good with it. I said what I wanted to say in the
Hmm?
3 books, and nothing I can say is going to make our government and all their UFO, unless they hire me. No matter what I say, is not going to make them any better or any smarter. And man, they got a long hill to climb. So for me, just them coming out kind of took the allure away.
Yeah, that's I can rationalize my own views with especially the Bigfoot topic, and if there was the actual discovery, so to speak.
Yeah, what would that do to you?
Well, that's one reason I became a certified master naturalist.
I know.
Was so that way.
Certified master what, sir?
I'm a certified master naturalist, so I work with the DNR and wildlife and all that kind of stuff on different projects here in the state, and I teach classes and all that stuff. So if like this is literally the entire reason I became the master naturalist, because I already knew most of the stuff. I went to survival school. I already knew about edibles and all the trees and all that stuff. But the when it came down to it, I wanted to be able to work on an official capacity if discovery became an official thing, because I had an experience where I witnessed these creatures personally, and I not only want to know the answers, but I want to continue the pursuit. And if something comes out, if they do recognize this species, because eventually when that happens, there's going to be a lot of Bigfooters that just fall off the map because they're like, okay, it's been found. But, I want to be on the inside track. I want to be there on an official capacity, be like, all right, I want to touch one of these things. I want to go and work.
So what happens when you figure out they're extra dimensional beings and not actually Bigfoot? I'm just curious.
Well, then I'm like, take me with you.
Because this planet sucks.
I think we all agree. Yes, we all agree to that.
I'm interested in the topic, but it wouldn't change my life. And I know, in my heart, I know how much excitement I had when I started out, and all the special things I did and the special people I talked to and what I've been through. And I'm very excited for that. I'm very happy. I've met a lot of great people, but my curiosity is satisfied on the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials. And a lot of people have said, you were right. You were right. In fact, let me show you guys something. My sister, who told everyone I was loony, her brother's investigating UFOs or whatever. We had a conversation the other day, and she, of course, has finally been clued in that the government said that we declassified UFOs and stuff. So now I'm more normal. But she was in Las Vegas with her girlfriend after learning this, because she hated UFOs too. And so she got me this as a little gift.
Oh my gosh. That is a cool one. Dude, I haven't seen that one yet. That's awesome.
She found it in a gift shop in Las Vegas and said, I saw this, I played with it, and I thought of you. So there you have it. It's become normalized. If my sister is accepting aliens, move on, guys. Let's find something more interesting.
Right on.
That's so awesome.
Raymond, tell our audience where they can find more of you, because I know that they're going to want to dive in deeper on this subject with you after listening to this episode. Anybody who hadn't had any experience with you in the past, they're going to want to know more. So where can they find your books and other TV appearances, things of that nature that you've made?
Okay, great. All 3 books are on Amazon. You type in my last name or 50 Shades of Grays or Alien Shades of Grays. All 3 books are there. If you want autographed copies of my book online, the Air Force Museum, the United States Air Force Museum here in Dayton, Ohio, right on Wright Patterson Air Force Base, sells book 1 and book 3. And I live 5 minutes away. Once a
so
month,
cool.
I take a couple boxes, I sign them, and they put a little sticker on there. So autographed copies at the Air Force Museum.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Let's see. Here, for having me on the show, I'm going to give you a little bonus. This has been unannounced. On the 23rd of September at the Hope Hotel on Wright Patterson Air Force Base, there is a good possibility that there will be the first UFO conference at Wright Pat.
What?
20, I told you, I can drop the truth bombs, baby. 23 September,
Oh my
a
God.
man has booked the Hope Hotel. He has asked me to be a speaker. He's asked other national names to come in for a day, be a speaker. He apparently has got rights for a recent UFO film to be shown at the Fairborn Theater as part of this conference. I don't know if there's going to be a charge or not, but the theater supposedly refurbished and reopened for special events. So if and when I get confirmation on all of this, I will send it to you. I'll get you a flyer on it. And
Oh, fantastic.
We'll
yeah,
make sure
right
everybody
now,
knows. Yeah.
even he has not announced the conference. I'm the
Yeah.
first guy to announce it. So 23 September, hopefully the Hope Hotel at Wright Pat. And I will just backfill as I found out information. He's got a lot of scrambling to do. I've already told him I'd give the talk there. I'm hoping it comes through. We just, again, it's the first time. So let's hope it does that. And as far as other things, look up Mission Unexplained, and there's reruns. I'm in what's called season 1, episode 8, S1E8, and I'm in the last 40 minutes of the show. We take up the last 40 minutes of the whole hour, and it's really, really great. It's Colonel Carroll. It's a lot of the video clips that I gave the production company, and it's great to see him. It's spooky because he's been dead for almost 2 years. So, but they did a great job. And guys, thank you for having me on. I look forward to seeing you in Flatwoods and, chilling with a beer.
Absolutely.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be a great time, man. We can't wait to have you. We're really excited about the conference, especially with the timing of everything. It's just going to be great.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Ray.
So
Looking
hang
forward
out
to
with us here for a little bit. We're going to go
Sure,
ahead and
absolutely.
do our show rundown. And guys, thank you. We hope you have enjoyed this episode.
If you haven't, you're watching the wrong thing.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And if you guys are, the audio guys, you got to see this cute little alien doll that Ray showed us.
Absolutely.
So jump over to YouTube and go like and subscribe the channel. And you can even just shuffle forward. It's at like the 1 hour mark and see this alien doll. But it's great. Everybody, thank you for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us. You guys are phenomenal. And if you want to continue to support Wild and Weird Radio for eons to come, you can head over to wildandweirdwv.com. Click on the shop tab. Once you open that up, it's going to take you to all of our shop stuff that we've got available. You can have our wares shipped straight to your home. And you don't have to deal with us in person. But for those of you that do want to deal with us in person,
there are people who like to deal with us
you
in
can
person.
find Ron coming up here later this month at next month, at Kecksburg UFO Festival. Then we will both be at the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Festival in August. Those are the two coming up soon that you definitely want to check out.
Hocking Hills, yes.
And remember, we do have a few spaces left. They are almost sold out for the Bigfoot Workshop 2023 at Kanawha State Forest. There are still a few left. This is July 15th in Kanawha State Forest. You're going to be able to learn from us directly how to conduct yourself in the field, how to conduct proper field research, how to collect forensic data, how to use equipment. Once all that's wrapped up, we're going to have dinner. I'm going to cook for everybody, and then anybody who wants to hang out after that, we actually are going to take you out and put to work everything that you had learned that day and in a mock investigation. But the kicker is this mock investigation is in one of our former research sites that we beat quite frequently. And we've collected data in this area, so you never know what's going to happen.
I mean, it's happened before. That's all I'm going to say.
As stranger things has happened, that's how we captured the thermal data in a previous workshop we got. So you don't want to miss it. It's a great time. Head over to wildandweirdwv.com and you can look up how to register there. If you guys have a sighting report that you want to send in, go to wildandweirdwv.com, click the sighting report link. It is going to open up a questionnaire that you will answer the few little questions. We will respond back to you as quickly as possible. And if you are in our immediate area, we will come out and we'll investigate your case. If you are outside our immediate area, we know researchers all across the country, and we can get your info into their hands so that way your sighting can be done its due diligence. And they will go out, put boots on the ground, collect data, and keep all of that in a pool where all researchers can reach it and use that data to come to a final answer. And remember, it's UFO Day, baby. Roswell happened, but we can't talk about it.
What can you tell me about the Roswell craft?
Fortunately, those details were not approved for me to talk about right now.
Stay wild and weird, everybody.